You're listening to Mornings with Pat Kreitlow on WRCE. I'm Bo Hendricks, and here's what's going on in Richland Center this morning.
Welcome to our morning show today from WRCO. We are blessed to have in the studio author David Benjamin, who's been on the phone with us several times. He was on with Ron a few times through the years, and with yours truly. But good to have you here in the flesh, my friend.
Oh, it's just great to be here. I've been in a number of radio studios, and I always enjoy it.
Getting a chance to move through Richland Center. Have you been through these parts a lot through the years? My grandfather, Archie Benjamin, used to like to drive around the area, and every fall he would take a driver down along the Kickapoo to Soldiers Grove, Gays Mills, places like that. I don't think we ever hit Richland Center, but we were obviously in the vicinity. Back in the day, Toma would have been in the same sports conference as Richland Center High School.
Yeah, the South Central Conference.
South
right?
Central.
Yeah,
right.
We usually beat Richland Center and Nakusa. Everybody else beat us.
Back in the day. But you've written some books relating to small towns I think a lot of people can relate to, and some characters that, we can relate to here in Richland Center too, right?
That's right. Yes. I grew up in Toma. My fictional memoir, "The Life and Times of the Last Kid Picked," was originally published by Random House in 2002, and after I started my own imprint, Last Kid Books, in 2019, I wrangled the copyright back from Random House. I was able to do some revisions in the manuscript, make it a little bit better, and publish it under the Last Kid Books imprint.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, do you go back and look at your previous work very often? And are you critical of yourself?
One of the things that my wife is critical enough for both of us, but one of the things that I tell people when they ask about past books and so forth is that. They ask me what's your favorite book, and I say the one I'm working on. Once the book has gone to press and is in print, you can't do anything with it. You can't mess with it. You can't edit. You can't revise. So you look forward rather than backward. The opportunity to look backward is when I come to places like this and talk to people about the books that are already written and try with all my heart to sell a few of them.
Right. Yeah. And we still have a few small bookstores, locally owned brick and mortar stores such as Okooch Books and Libations here in Richland Center.
Right. That might be. Do you think he's open today?
Yeah, I think you can head in there and see what he's doing today.
Good.
So.
Yeah. All right.
Absolutely. Let's talk about Benjamin's Mess. Is that your latest work?
Yes. In fact, today I just got the book design back from my book designer. Her name is Kristen Mitchell. She's in Mineral Point. She runs an outfit called Little Creek Press. She packages books, but now she's moving into publishing. But her forte is book design. People don't understand how important a design is for a book. It isn't just something you put. It isn't just something you can do on a keyboard on a computer. It has to be thought through and pieced together. And Kristen's great at that. Benjamin's Mess is my second collection of essays.
So tell me about the essays. Are they ones that have been accumulating through the years?
I started writing. I think I wrote my first essay when I was in ninth grade. It was a critique of the Sergeant Rock comic books. I don't know if you ever read Sergeant Rock.
Well, I don't think so. No.
He was your classic comic book war hero. And I read a lot of Sergeant Rock when I was a little kid, but by the time I was a freshman in high school, I was skeptical of the concept, and so that was my first essay. I started writing essays professionally when I took a job as a newspaper, as the associate editor of a weekly newspaper in Massachusetts, the Mansfield News. I had a column about sports called the
fifth quarter, and then I started an opinion column called The Fourth Estate, and I was writing an essay a week for since from 1974 until the mid 80s. I also covered the theater in Boston for 7 years, and so I wrote reviews of everything that passed through Boston and Rhode Island and the general New England area, where I could get in and do a review. So over those years, I accumulated probably more than close to 1,000 essays. I was when I moved to Tokyo, which is where my wife is from. I worked as editor of the English Language City magazine, the Tokyo Journal, and I also had columnist. I wrote a column there, and I also had gigs as a columnist for two English language newspapers, the Japan Times Weekly and the Mainichi Daily News. And once those gigs ended, because I moved back to the United States, I started sending essays once a week over the transom to newspaper editors all over the country, and got probably about 50 placements in places like the Orange County Register and Philadelphia Inquirer, Capital Times, and Wisconsin State Journal. Each bought one too, and so by then I was just in the habit of writing essays. So even when the over the transom market kind of died because of online publishing and the internet and so forth, I continued to write a weekly essay. I call it the Weekly Screed. And I started sending it to a list of people, of about 200, 300 people. Right now, I put it on my website, which is www.lastkidbooks.com, every week for free for anybody who goes to my website. But I also put it on Substack. And I have about 250, 300 supposed readers. You know, you don't always know if anybody ever reads it, but according to Substack, my pickup rate is around 60%, which is actually pretty good.
These essays through the years, then it's almost like a diary for you in some ways, isn't it?
No, it's not really. I studied essay writing under some of the greats of the past. People. I in the State Journal when I was in Madison, I read Russell Baker and Mike Royko, and I started reading authors like H.L. Mencken and E.B. White, who write essays about what comes to mind. And they try to cover as much of the much of the range of human thought as they possibly can within their own experience. That's the combination. You write an essay that's personal, but you have to make it authoritative and as universal as you possibly can. That's the art of writing the essay, and it's a craft that takes a lot of work and a lot of study. I look back at some of the stuff I wrote for the Mansfield newspaper, and I'm embarrassed by it. But you do it enough, you do it often enough, and you do it. I write every week. I maintain a discipline in that, and I think you get better at it. My first collection of essays was called "Almost Killed by a Train of Thought," and it won the New York City Big Book Award for the best essay. Independent Press Award for best essay collection in 2019. And of course, since then, more of my weekly screeds have accumulated. So my second collection is called Benjamin's Mess, which is a reference to the Bible, by the way.
It is.
Yes. Benjamin was the 12th son of Isaac. He sat at the right hand of Isaac, and so he always got the best food. Benjamin's Mess was the best mess.
Interesting. That's where it comes from. Is the book out now? Is it?
No, as I said, the design is done.
Design is done,
and I'm hoping that now that I've got the design, I can get it to my get it to the press this week and have it out by the 1st of September before Labor Day.
What book has gotten the most acclaim for you so far, David?
Oh, The Life and Times of the Last Kid Picked, which was my first one, which was published in a fairly big press run by Random House and has been around for a long time, and it chronicles life growing up in the late 50s, early 60s, when kids had virtually no parental supervision and they could just do whatever they felt like doing, and none of their parents really cared where they were as long as they weren't in the house.
Yeah, it was a different time, wasn't it?
Yeah, right.
A safer time in some ways.
I think it was a safer time in a strange way. It was a small town, and kids were set loose to run free. But everybody knew who the kids were. Neighbors watched out for the neighbors' kids, and you couldn't get into a whole lot of trouble or even danger because there was always someone around with an eye on you. So it was safer in that respect. But we were out on the highway on our bicycles. We were reckless. And we could have been killed by just by our own stupidity rather than by some evil force. But in the sense that you had people with a sense of responsibility for everyone in the community. Yeah, I guess it was safer.
Your books kind of document like major iconic moments in your life, because I know the fiction novel about They Shot Kennedy was another moment in time in your life that was
right. It's one of the when I did book talks about they centered on They Shot Kennedy. I had people in the audience who were upset with me because I hadn't written a book about one of the conspiracies about JFK's assassination. The title of the book is based on what I heard on the stairway in my high school when I was in 9th grade from another kid who was coming down the stairs and said, "They shot Kennedy." The book takes place in November 1963, from the beginning of the month to the end of the month, and it chronicles the lives of a bunch of high school kids in Madison who are so wrapped up in their personal lives and their romances and their ups and downs, trials and tribulations, that one of the great historic moments of the 20th century just sort of passes them by, and they have to be instructed in its importance by a slightly older grown-up person who also happened to be the September Playmate of the Month in Playboy magazine.
But Kennedy, in the reference to the book, was your principal, is that correct?
Well, all right. I was going up the steps in the A wing at La Follette High School. Steve Cates, one of my who was in my class, was coming down the steps. Steve Cates said to me, "They shot Kennedy," and I looked over to the homeroom of Mr. Kennedy, who was a middle school social studies teacher, and I said, "Oh yeah, Mr. Kennedy's a jerk, but not so bad that you'd want to shoot him." It took me a minute to realize that the Kennedy in reference was not Mr. Kennedy, the social studies teacher, but Jack Kennedy, the president. That kind of typifies the detachment that kids always have had to great events happening around them, or even in the town, whether it's the town, the state, or the nation, or the world. Kids are they're solipsistic. They're narcissists. They focus first on themselves and their friends and their miseries rather than on things around them. And the kids in this book that I wrote about are well-informed kids. They're the bright kids. They're the intellectual class of the school, and yet they are also captivated by things close to them rather than things all around them.
Sure. Well, the nation was in mourning at that time. How did the young people react? Was it a kind of a depressing time in November of '63?
Oh yeah, sure. Yes, it was a dark time. Everything shut down, and everybody was just glued to the television watching the funeral processional, and then of course all the Jack Ruby, Lee Harvey Oswald, the shooting incident, and so forth. It was as insular a period as we've ever known. People just withdrew into themselves.
Moving ahead to a book you wrote about the summer of 1968. Again, lots of things going on right in your backyard. Could you tell that story a little bit about that book?
Oh, sure. Well, I have a group of the books that I call the Coming of Age Quartet, which starts with the life and times of the last kid picked and proceeds through 3 more books, the last of which is Summer of '68. I have 2 characters who are the same kid, just with different names, and I change the characters' set of experiences and family a little bit, but it's the same voice all the way through. So they're all narrated in the first person by a character who, in Summer of '68, is Franklin Roosevelt Cribbs, and all of his friends call him Cribbsy. All right, and so. Cribbsy becomes, after he graduates from high school, he becomes a counselor at an art and music camp in East Troy, Wisconsin. I call it Camp Nantoka, but it was the camp that I went to after my freshman year in college was Hull House Camp, run by out of the city of Chicago by the Hull House Association, which handled all social services in Chicago. It was an art and music camp, competitive with the famous Interlochen Art and Music Camp in Michigan, which is still going on. What the essence of the story is that all of the culture and syndromes of Chicago in 1968, including the violence of the Democratic National Convention that year in Chicago, were plopped into the middle of the woods in East Troy, Wisconsin. And so all the kids there were from Chicago, and they came from every possible social class and income. There were kids from the rich suburbs in Glencoe, and there were kids from the darkest streets of the south side of Chicago, all of them doing things like art and music and theater and so forth. And Cribbsy was coming of age and learning about love and life throughout the summer, and Summer of '68 is a chronicle of that. It's like all of my coming of age books. It's what I call a comedy based on tragedy. It's hard for me not to write humorously, but I write humorously about serious things, and I write seriously about humorous things.
Is that how you deal with things sometimes? I mean,
yeah. My dad was the foremost ironist in Monroe County. If I tripped and hit my head on the side of a desk and was bleeding, he would go to make sure the desk was all right. I think people in Wisconsin have a well-developed sense of irony, and you're living in a place where it gets to be 30 below zero in the winter and 100 degrees in the summer, and you have mosquitoes most of the time, and people's lives are, a lot of my uncles and aunts were farmers, and if you're running a farm, everything, your whole life depends on the weather. You can lose a whole year's crop and a whole year's income in one big storm. So people in Wisconsin and this part of the country just have a way. One of the ways you cope is to laugh to keep from crying, and to whistle past the graveyard. Yeah.
When you're in this camp in 1968, you'd think out in the middle of nowhere you could pretty much almost stick your head in the sand and not be aware of all the things that were going on.
Oh yeah,
nationally.
yeah. You were. That summer. Very little of what was going on in the outside world filtered its way into that camp at East Troy, Wisconsin. So, every week, the counselors got a day off. It went from noon to noon. So you had to work the morning and then be ready to work the next afternoon. And so I'd go to Madison or Rockford, or I took a trip to Chicago one week, and suddenly you were aware of all the things that were going on that you had no idea about. You lived with I had all my records with me, so I was listening to Crosby, Stills and Nash and the Doors and and the Rolling Stones, and they were my reality. All the people, the other counselors and the kids I was taking care of. I had 16 kids, 11-year-olds from Chicago to take care of, pretty much by myself. That was a challenge.
I bet it was.
Yeah.
But they were all kids that were kind of had the same bond. They were artistic and.
Some the kids, the kids from the South Side, the black kids from the South Side were completely. A lot of them had never been in a place where there were white people. They had to make an adjustment that was not only to what they were learning in the camp, but to a culture that was completely different from the world that they grew up in. One of my characters, his name was Otha. He was 11 years old, and he was completely impulsive. He had very little control of his emotions, his anger. He was a wonderful artist. He drew things really well, but the things he drew expressed kind of a confusion and rage that you wouldn't expect from an 11-year-old. One time, I spoke to I had all my kids at a table at lunch, and I asked the kids, how many of you have ever been arrested? These were 11-year-olds. All the black kids raised their hands. None of the white kids raised their hand. So they had a common bond by learning stuff at the camp, but they also came from entirely different worlds, especially in the late 60s when Chicago was still one of the most segregated and poverty-stricken cities in the country.
You've lived all over the world. Why do you come back to Wisconsin occasionally?
Oh, Wisconsin is home. I have a Wisconsin attitude. I'm glad that I have more than just a Wisconsin attitude. I'm glad I've lived in Paris and New York and on the West Coast near San Francisco, Tokyo, and so forth. I spent a summer loading trucks in Orlando, Florida. Now, that was a lot of fun.
You've been everywhere, man, as the song says.
But what was the question again?
About living in Wisconsin. Why do you keep coming back?
Yeah. Well, it's my anchor. It's my roots. But all right. I know Wisconsin really well, but I prefer living in Madison, which is the People's Republic of Madison, because it's a more cosmopolitan place. It's more like Europe than say Warsaw is.
Sure.
And so I enjoy. When I do book talks, wherever it is, around Wisconsin, we're talking about books, we're talking about thinking, and I'm reminded of the fact that when I was growing up in Tomah, the only people who had ever been to college in that town were the lawyers and the bankers and the teachers. Everybody else were working class folks, most of whom, when I was growing up, they'd been in the service. The men had, and most of the women were housewives. The biggest career a lot of them had was Avon lady or something like that. But these were curious people with good minds who had just not gone to a lot of school. My grandfather was a bright guy who understood so much. He finished school in 8th grade. My dad finished school in 12th grade. My mother never finished high school at all. But all the workmen and cashiers at the grocery store, people I encountered on the street, people I met at the dime store, they were bright folks who talked about things other than just themselves and their problems. We forget how important a kind of innate intelligence is, and how we can trust people to know more than we think they ought to know. Or the whole cliche about flyover country and how dumb we all are in the middle of the country is belied by my upbringing in Tomah.
Sure.
The worst intellectual illness that people suffer is the death of curiosity. When people stop being curious about things, then they just then they can become bigoted and prejudiced and ignorant and unpleasant. But as long as they're curious and as long as they want to learn something more, even just casually, you can talk to them and you can enjoy their company and you can learn something from them.
You told me before we went on the air that your dad was a bartender for 50 years.
Yeah.
Did he ever write a book? He certainly could have.
I regret not sitting down with my dad. He died, of course, but I regret not sitting down with him and just writing down everything he remembered. Because he was a sponge for local lore in Tomah. He knew every house in town. He knew the history of most of the families in town, and when he as a bartender, he was one of the great therapists in town.
Right.
He had terrible self-control over himself, but he was able to help other people cope with their issues. If he could have coped with his own issues as well as he did with other people, he probably would have been rich, successful, and working as a lawyer in Chicago or something like that. But he never. But because it was a small town, and because it wasn't considered trendy to be educated after high school, and because he never really took high school seriously, he did. I don't think he realized until well after he was into his 20s or 30s. I don't think he realized how smart he was, and I think he had a sense that he had missed out on something, and I think that's common with a lot of people who grow up in a community like that, where they really don't have much experience outside of it. I mean, I didn't expect when I was growing up in Tomah to ever set foot outside of Tomah, to ever live in a place like Paris or Tokyo. Mm-hmm. It was just happenstance and a kind of a perverse sense of we got to get out of this place, that sent me off into the world.
Yeah, that World War II generation too. A lot of times they stayed on the farm, or they did things, or they went to the service, and may have chosen a different career path had that not happened.
Yeah, right. The World War II, the experience of traveling, just even on a troop ship, but then coming back home and having the advantage of the GI Bill changed society. Really, it created a middle class, a prosperous middle class with education and ambitions.
When you write, you lived in Paris. Are you more productive in places like Paris, or does it matter? Does the location matter for you?
In Madison, I have a lot of errands to run, so it cuts into my time. In Paris, I'm not answering the phone very much. I get a little bit more work done in Paris, but then when you're in Paris, if you're sitting around the house in front of a keyboard instead of exploring Paris, you feel guilty about that. So I cut into my my work time in Paris by exploring around the city, and Paris is infinitely explorable. You can live there for 100 years and still find surprises in the city. It's a remarkable place.
You mentioned the Doors. I'm curious. Have you visited Jim Morrison's grave in Paris?
The last time I was there was in it was at the May. The end. It was May and the beginning of June. We had a guest with us, the daughter of my late sister's best friend, Carrie, was visiting us, and I took her to the cemetery at Père Lachaise because it's an amazing place. It's the most magnificent cemetery in the world, and it's so big it has street names. And we avoided Jim Morrison's grave.
You did?
Yeah. Well, I've been there. I've seen it.
It's more of a tourist thing.
Yeah. It's it's so surrounded. It's so heavily surrounded by tourists. I don't know. Morbidly curious who want to see his grave. And it's not a very impressive grave. It was he was kind of stuck between a bunch of other stones, but it's covered with graffiti, and they have to assign a policeman or a policewoman to guard it from being further damaged by the door lovers. But that cemetery just has some of the greatest people in history. Molière is there, and La Fontaine, and Oscar Wilde's. Oscar Wilde's grave is another one that they have to be careful with because he's a hero to the gay community, and they had to put up a plexiglass shield around his gravestone. It's a magnificent gravestone, but because people were writing their names and saying, and writing slogans to Oscar Wilde on it. But that's one of the, when people ask me about where should I go in Paris and what should I see, I always say you should go to Père Lachaise because it's a fascinating place. You can buy a map of the whole cemetery and wander around and see all the famous graves.
Interesting stuff. What about the next book? Is there always one in the hopper, so to speak?
Right. Well, of course, Benjamin's Mess will be coming out in September, and it is it's typical of my weekly screed output. It's a mixture of humor and serious stuff, and as little politics as I can possibly do. But I'm drawn to write about politics, especially nowadays. But right now, the book last year. In November, I published a collection of my Christmas pieces called "Christmas in a Jugular Vein," and I'll be pushing and promoting that again this year because it got off the press later than I expected in the middle of November, so I didn't have much time to sell. So I'm encouraging people to look up "Christmas in a Jugular Vein" on my website www.lastkidbooks.com so that they can buy that. But right now, I'm working on the sixth installment of my small town crime series, set in Hercules, Wisconsin. It's called Upstairs, and it's a murder mystery with a touch of horror in it. It's the thematic thread is the thing that children. That each particular child fears the most, and that's the thematic thread in the book. But it's a whodunit kind of thing, like all the other. Jim Otis is my protagonist. He's the police chief in Hercules, and he's the one that's stuck with the job of solving this fearful thing that's scaring all the kids in town.
Of all your books, which one would you like to most see on a screenplay, like a movie? Somebody came calling.
Oh, I wrote a murder mystery set in Paris called Skullduggery in the Latin Quarter. And because of the setting, Paris, and because of the pace of the story, I think that would make a fun movie.
That's interesting. Yeah. But who would play you in a movie?
Luckily, I don't make,
The character's loosely
some
based
of,
on
you
you.
know,
So.
my character, say, in the life and times of the last kid picked. That's obviously me.
That's right.
The kid's got my name, but you know, if that would be a child actor, and all child actors are completely unknown until after the movie's been made. So I couldn't pick a child to play me, but I'm not a character really in any of my books. I think there's some, you know, one of the things I tell young writers who are told by their creative writing teachers to write what you know, write about yourself. And I tell these kids, yeah, okay, write about yourself, but write about yourself, but not yourself. Make yourself into a character. You are a lot of people. Pick one of those people and write about that one. Not about don't make this book a confessional. Make it an act of imagination, and put yourself in it. But make yourself do things and think things and say things that you wouldn't normally say.
Well done.
Yeah.
So good to see you today, David.
Oh, it's a pleasure to talk to you, as always.
Yeah. Good to have you here in the studio this time. So.
Yeah, right. I'll be back.
Safe travels to you.
Right.
Author David Benjamin. And check it out. LastKidBooks.com is the place to go to find out more.